Episode 53 is a part of Founder Series with George Wojciechowski, founder of Manifest, a sustainable e-commerce fulfillment company. Previously, George was the co-founder of Shipbob and worked in the trading division at Goldman Sachs. So, great to have you on.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming before you're flying out.
Super excited to be here, Lucy.
So, I came across your company through South by Southwest, where you were pitching. How did you find South by Southwest? How did you come across the pitching opportunity, and did you manage to raise funding?
Yeah, great questions. So obviously South by Southwest, if you're based in Austin, is very hard to ignore. We started our business here about a year and a half ago, almost around the time that South by Southwest happened, 2022. And the whole city turns upside down. It's actually really fantastic. Knowing that we're based here in Austin and knowing that they have a category called Smart Cities, Transportation and Logistics, us being a young company taking a new approach to sustainability in fulfillment, in e-commerce, decided to throw our hat in the ring, fill out an application. I think in total, over 800 people companies fill out applications to be part of the pitch competition of South by Southwest. And the pitch competition, as you likely know, is kind of like the big ending event for the tech part of South by Southwest. There's tech, then music, and movies. So it happens on the final 2 days, and it's a great event that finishes off with a big stage award ceremony, which was really cool to be able to experience. But about a year or earlier this year, we filled out an application. And we were one of the lucky ones that were identified as worthy of being in the pitch competition in the Smart Cities Logistics category.
That's awesome. Congrats. Who are the investors? Is it South by Southwest? Is it venture capital funds?
Yeah, I actually don't know who the backers of South by Southwest are. I know it's been going on here in Austin, Texas since about 2005, 2006, if my memory serves me well. And at this point, I feel like it's a citywide, community-wide colossus of energy that's put into putting on a great festival for the rest of the country and for the rest of the world. The opportunities that they give startups are fantastic. It puts you in front of a lot of investors, a lot of peers, a lot of fellow startup founders, and to talk about your business and what you're doing to move things forward in whatever industry you're focusing on.
Yeah, I think about 200,000 people attend the festival. It's the largest conference in Austin.
Yeah. What's funny is even though 200,000 people attended, it never really seemed that crowded this year. They do a really good job.
They have venues all over Austin.
Yeah.
Right. I think there's like 20, 30 venues all
Correct.
over the city.
Yeah.
Someone said to me a few years back that the real money and opportunities are in the boring industries.
In the which industry?
In the boring industries,
yeah.
In the unsexy legacy industries. Would you agree with that? And then walk me through how you got into logistics.
Yeah, 100%. I would agree with that. And I think the same was true in my first, it wasn't technically my first, but my first startup venture that I was a part of as co-founder of Shipbob. Logistics, fulfillment, transportation hadn't really been disrupted since FedEx and DHL in the early 70s. Yeah. So I think industries that are very set in the old way of doing things and haven't adopted and implemented new technologies that have come on board into their value proposition are always ripe for disruption and for having their business models turned upside down by a new company entering this space with a new context and a new delivery of a value proposition. And also, it's less competition. It may be more daunting to take on companies that have dominated a particular industry for 15, 20, 25 years. Yeah. But when everyone's trying to create the next Snapchat and there's 300 companies working on being the next Snapchat, there's just so much competition in that space. Taking on a big lumbering industry that is ripe for disruption is just less competition. It's harder at first, but in the long run, if you're able to successfully implement your model into the industry and scale that, the opportunity is all the more larger, and there's less competitors that you would need to deal with.
And how did you identify the opportunity?
For
Shipbob,
logistics?
yeah. How did you get into logistics? Because you were in finance previously.
Yeah, I was in finance. So the story is not super. It was more serendipitous than it was a business calculation. The business was started by Dhruv and Dave, who had, they had known each other from India since they were, 2 years old. And Dave was going to business school with my childhood friend Shifko. And I remember going to work on the trading floor of Chicago in the summertime and riding my bike by the post office and seeing my childhood friend standing outside the post office with a captain's hat. And they were pitching Shipbob to business owners who were walking into the post office. And usually this was 2014, they would have, boxes that they needed to like dump on the counter and say, please put labels on this, I need to ship them. This was the earlier days of e-commerce. And so they were actively signing up new users, new business owners by standing outside the post office in Chicago. And so I would stop, chat with them. And that led to, a couple months later being like, what you guys are doing here is really cool. And joined the team, and 5-6 months later, I was off to New York to start our office out there. And that took me on a journey where I went to New York, operationalized our office in Brooklyn, then went to Los Angeles. I did the same thing there. Then I went to San Francisco, did the same thing there. Then I went to Dallas, and I finally came home in 2019 to Chicago at that time.
And what does Shipbob do? Or what did
Shipbob does shipping and logistics for e-commerce businesses. So back in 2014, platforms like BigCommerce, like we have here in Austin, Texas, or Shopify, were allowing almost anybody with an inspired idea for a business to create a cool website and a legitimate payment platform to which was a part of the heavy lift at that time, creating a website, HTML, or using at that point, what was the company, Wix. It was just not turnkey. They made it very turnkey for anybody who wanted to start a business and had a great idea for a product to basically be in business in like 2 hours. The traditional fulfillment industry saw these new merchants, these younger merchants, as too small to pay attention to. Our calculation at that time was that these merchants, who were viewed as cookie crumbs to the traditional fulfillment industry, would add up to be a pretty sizable cookie one day. You have all these young people who now have the opportunity, instead of taking their job at some big Fortune 5,000 company, to start or even if they were taking that job, they could start a business on their own with very little upfront investment because of these platforms like Shopify and BigCommerce and Squarespace. And that calculation was correct. The market exploded. A lot of these merchants took off, and we were their go-to, because what we did at Shipbob is not only cater our value proposition to what their needs were, but we infused it with tech and connectivity. So part of the problem with working with a traditional fulfillment company back then was that they were using technology that looked like it was from 1996. So if you're an e-commerce business owner, maybe you're selling hats in Brooklyn or jewelry in Los Angeles, and now they're asking you to use this weird, cumbersome software that doesn't tell you very much about what your inventory levels are, or doesn't give you real-time information, and maybe they ask you to upload your orders via Excel. It just didn't work. So we made a point of listening to what merchants were telling us they needed and building the tools, the apps, the integrations in a centralized dashboard. So no longer did they have to use 2 or 3 platforms to figure out what they were doing with their, how their business was doing. All that information would be centralized within our dashboard at Shipbob, which was a unique and first of its kind product into the fulfillment industry, at least for the small, mid-sized market of merchants. And it really resonated well.
So were you an application on Shopify? Or were you integrated?
Well, I think we're in Shipbob is in the Shopify App Store now, but back in the day, no, we were an API integration. So our dashboard, the centralized dashboard that I'm talking about, we actually created a really turnkey method where all the merchant would have to do is put in their Shopify API keys and their store name, and within like 30 seconds, it would connect your Shopify store to our fulfillment WMS, warehouse management system.
So you started off all these branches in New York, San Francisco, Dallas. Why did you quit? What led you to leaving Shipbob?
We had built a beautiful company, and it's a beautiful company today still. After 7 years, I just felt like a new challenge was in store for me. And the challenge of leading the change towards sustainability in e-commerce was something that got me really excited to wake up in the morning and go to work and spend the long hours and countless days that it takes to launch a business and do it all over again. For me, that was something that got me really excited and something that needed to happen. Part of it was that, like, in terms of like fulfillment, a lot of people like myself and my other two co-founders who are industry veterans per their Shipbob experience don't really exist. And if they do, they're 57 years old and thinking about the condo in Miami to retire to. So it's almost a sense of responsibility, given that we still have hopefully our best years ahead of us, our working years ahead of us, to solve this problem or attempt to solve this problem of waste, of single-use packaging, of hazardous materials for in shipments, of being the common practice in fulfillment. If there was anybody that was meant to reimagine what 21st century fulfillment needed to look like, it was us. And so I kind of heard the calling and went to work on it. So
customers of Shipbob came to you and told you, we need more sustainability in our business? No,
it's just, as a first-hand observer in the industry, I always knew that our industry was a waste-intensive business. I could probably say this now. I remember days back in like the early days where myself and the fulfillment center team would jump up and down in the dumpsters to try to push the trash down because we couldn't fit it all into the dumpsters. And to get a bigger container would be exponentially more expensive. And if you just take a look at a lot of the packages that arrive at our doorstep, they're just single-use vessels to meet our demand for convenience, this like new Amazon-led mentality of convenience. And there's no other use for them. They go straight to the dumpster. Some of them get recycled, but if you know much about recycling, most of the stuff that goes through recycling doesn't actually get recycled unless it's perfectly recyclable. And so I knew that a new solution needed to be found if we didn't want to leave a legacy behind that we, as an industry, wouldn't be proud of. There's so much prosperity, so much democratic prosperity that occurs with people being able to start their own businesses and sell products online to the rest of the world. But the byproduct of that also needs to be in line with that prosperity and that, putting in good into the world. And with that, sustainability to me was the solution that needed to be found. And then, it's always been a waste-intensive industry, and then COVID hit. And then overnight, you had a world where, including my 71-year-old mom, was now very comfortable ordering things online, something she hadn't done prior to COVID, including her groceries. So this is a trend that's going to be a part of our lives for at least 20 years. Who knows what happens after that? But, I got also tired of hearing commercials or seeing commercials on TV. It's like, oh yeah, as a company, we're going to be sustainable by 2035. And it's like, we need solutions now. 2035, the compound amount of damage that will be done if we don't change things is going to be so much substantially higher because the velocity of e-commerce has picked up. So, we went to work on finding a sustainable solution. And sustainable, I'll say this because I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, is not necessarily a binary thing. It's not on and off. It is a journey. Day one at Manifest, we decided to eliminate plastics from the fulfillment process. People don't realize that the plastic tape that arrives at most of our doors takes 500 years to biodegrade. That's longer than America has been a nation, but that's what we're leaving for generations to inherit on this planet. Of all the plastics produced in the world since 1955, 93% of them are still in the earth. So it's like plastic has great utility. Obviously, it's super cheap. But if we can eliminate the use of plastics in our industry, or at least when it comes to shipping packages, we absolutely should do it. So we eliminated plastics from our fulfillment process. I don't know of any other 3PL fulfillment company that had done that previously. We decided to offset the carbon footprint on every shipment.
How do you do that?
So we work very closely with our partner EcoCart, which is another fantastic young company. We work closely with them to make sure that our investment in the offsets and our merchants, our clients' investments in the offsets are going directly to where we intend them to go, mainly sequestration and reforestation, not deforestation, reforestation. And, you know, we don't necessarily hang our hat on offsets and pound our chest and say, hey, we're sustainable because we're offsetting the carbon footprint. It's a little bit like buying indulgences from the Catholic Church in the Middle Ages. It's like, oh, we know we did bad, but here's money to make it better. But EcoCart has a fantastic program for e-commerce merchants. We were the first fulfillment center to work with them and say, hey, we want to offset everything. So oftentimes you'll have our merchants that work with EcoCart, and we're offsetting the footprint as well, creating essentially a climate positive transaction. And then thirdly, all of our packaging, our void fill, our poly mailers, our boxes, everything we use is biodegradable. So for example, a traditional poly mailer takes about 22 to 25 years to biodegrade. The poly mailers that we use in-house at Manifest take about 350 days to completely biodegrade. So it's like subtle differences like that, and continuing to keep sustainability as a stakeholder in your decision-making process and as your North Star as you build a business is, to me, what sustainability is. Because the world around us right now isn't necessarily sustainable. So you can't expect somebody to like jump through hoops, pay exponentially more money just to find all the sustainable solutions. But what we can do is create a movement towards sustainability and show people how it's done. Therefore, hoping that they replicate the processes that we use and show them to be successful.
You mentioned the word sustainable many times. What does that mean? I think it's being thrown around a lot in this world.
Yeah, for sure. So, like I said, sustainability to me is a journey to continuously look for solutions that are positive or neutral to the environment. So much of what we do in modern society, and a lot of the things that we can't help it, just because, like I said, society isn't structured to be sustainable today. But what sustainability is are we choosing the environmentally route in that we could do, whether it's an extra 18 cents or whether it's making another decision around something sustainable? Are we constantly keeping this sustainability, the idea of choosing the most environmentally option to our actions continuously in our decision-making process? You can't nobody's sustainable overnight. I would say if you live in this world, there's no way that you can be 100% sustainable, but we have to move in that direction. And I feel very strongly that shipping, especially small to mid-size e-commerce, is a great place to start, because a lot of the businesses that we work with aren't big Fortune 5,000 companies with a lot of bureaucracy. They're people who run businesses with small teams, and they want to do the right thing. So you don't have to go through a lot of the red tape that you would go through trying to, take a big company and get them to adopt our methods of fulfillment.
Yeah. My question is, why would merchants care? You said that biodegradable packaging is something like 18 cents more expensive.
Oh, that was just, it varies. But typically...
But when you compare the cost versus the impact, I would say right now with the incentives, merchants would choose the cost.
Well, we knew that we had to be cost competitive.
Yeah.
We could be sustainable all day long, but if our fulfillment services weren't in line with the rest of the industry, or pretty damn close to it, it would be very hard to catch on with merchants. So first part of that answer is that we're happy to take less margin as a business because we know it's something that has to happen. And our clients love us for it. because we've had clients sign up with Manifest that have said, hey, I looked at your pricing, I didn't even look at it twice. I have a sustainable product, and for the last 4 years, I've been working with another 3PL, and I've had to look the other way when it comes to how they package my products. It's totally not on brand, but there were no other options. Because you guys are doing what you're doing,
yeah.
I want to work with you, I want to partner with you. And so, one of the things that we do for our merchants that's really cool is at the end of the month, we provide them with an impact report that tells them as a business the difference that they've made by utilizing Manifest and our fulfillment services. And I think that's really important. The information, the data, to be able to take that data and repackage it to your own audience. Because not only are brands, to answer your question, not only are brands wanting to do the right thing and leave a legacy that they can be proud of, but they're also starting to recognize that to be sustainable is a competitive advantage. If you have a company selling supplements, or if you have a company selling board games, and the consumer's on the other side and they're deciding between your product and a competitor's product, and your brand matches their ethos around sustainability, around environmental issues, could be even social issues, they are more likely to not only purchase from you, but be more loyal to your brand and purchase again. I have this hypothesis that sustainability is the new brand loyalty, because similar to how merchants want to do the right thing, consumers want to do the right thing too. They want to buy from a brand that allows them to feel good about their purchase and reinforces their beliefs on how the world should be. So, it's a competitive advantage, and it's the new brand loyalty. Does the brand that I buy from, and a lot of the goods that we sell aren't like milk and butter and like commodity goods. They're specialty goods. So if you're spending $120, $130 an order, not only do you want a cool, badass, fantastic product, but you want to feel good about who you're giving your money to and what you're supporting. And so smart brands are starting to recognize that this is not only the right thing to do, but it's very good for my business to be sustainable and to position myself with a sustainable fulfillment provider.
I agree with you. I also feel that a lot of businesses are manipulating customers, and they're not very accurate when it comes to reporting their emissions or saying how climate friendly they are, right? Like any business right now can put a climate friendly label on their packaging without actually doing anything to be sustainable.
1000%. There's a lot of greenwashing out there. And I would say that we're still in the early stages, just as a planet, in the mass shift towards sustainability. And you're always going to have opportunists out there looking to gain an advantage by saying this or that and not backing it up. It's just one of those things that we work through. I'd say the community as a whole has been really good about calling out, especially those Fortune 5000 companies, calling out brands that, we represent, it could be anything. It could be environmental stuff, but it could be like, pride, or it could be supporting, a social cause. And it's like, you say that you're supporting it, but internally, this is how you engage with your workforce, or et cetera, et cetera. So I'd say the community, not the e-commerce community, but just the social media community is really good about sleuthing through and finding brands that perhaps may not back up their action, what they're saying and what they're representing with actions.
I think a good example of virtue signaling is paper straws. Like a few years ago, you had this video that circled around the world of a turtle that had a plastic straw in her nostril, and she died of it. And I think McDonald's, or I don't know which company started it, but they said, okay, we're going to end this suffering and we're going to just do paper straws from now on. And I'm like, what impact do paper straws or plastic straws have compared to your whole supply chain? Right? Like the paper straw thing to me seems more like virtue signaling, like pretending that you're doing something rather than actually trying to have an impact.
Yeah, I agree with you. I would say the original paper straws from like 3, 4, 5 years ago, they were terrible. I hated them, but they were the right thing. Recently, and I don't know the straws business, but recently I've had a bunch, like over the last year, they've upped their game, and a lot of the paper straws that I've used have been a lot more durable than the original paper straws. But to your point, you'd be surprised. I agree with you that it's opportunistic, but you'd be surprised how much small actions can compound into bigger actions. Like to my earlier point, you can't just say, wave a wand and say, we're doing things differently today. A big organization like McDonald's or anything, it's a process. And that's why I refer to sustainability as a journey often, because it's like, okay, we have a goal of what we aspire to have our supply chain look like, or have our company's engagement with the world, and how we, not only, fulfill our products, but source and manufacture, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Constantly need to be examining the different chains that lead to your final product in your business, and say, how can we up our game and do better with this, while also still staying cost competitive? I'm not going to say, hey, just choose the better. You have to be cost competitive. And that's why when it's your North Star and you're an entrepreneur, you'll find a way. You'll find a way. It's not impossible. There's thousands of businesses, maybe even millions, that are constantly doing it every day. And I applaud those businesses, and we love working with them at Manifest.
So if I'm a consumer and I want to purchase products that are sustainable, what do you recommend that I look at? What are the metrics? What are the reports? What are the labels on the products that I should be wary of, perhaps, that are not accurate? Yeah,
there's a lot more nowadays that I'm noticing that I can't even keep up with the different. Recently, there was over the weekend there was a can that I was at a hotel, and there was a can of water, and on there was a new symbol that I didn't recognize, and that was, this metal lasts forever, meaning that, like, if you discard this water bottle, they can I'm assuming they can recycle it forever. I don't know about that, but I thought that was interesting, because I keep saying, I always think companies that adhere to B Corp principles are a really good source. We're B Corp pending, and I've done the B Corp application.
Is your company B Corp?
B Corp pending.
B Corp pending.
B Corp pending. So it is a year review process.
All right.
Yeah. But that application is like 750 questions, and took like, I don't know, 8 or 9 hours. So like six hours probably. But point is, if you get certified by B Corp, you've at least gone through the gauntlet of self-examination. And even if for whatever reason you don't get your B Corp status, just utilizing their questionnaire as a self-examination tool, I think would be super useful, because it makes you examine everything from your hiring practices to your sustainability to how much your toilet flushes water when you flush the toilet. So it's like, that's a good guide to me. As far as some of the other, there's a lot of them popping up, and I have not had time to get super into them, but someone out there is trying. And I support what they're trying to do. And again, it's a journey.
How do investors feel about B Corps? Are there any disadvantages from their perspective, or advantages?
That's a great question that I've never heard before. I think
how do your investors feel about it?
Our investors love it. Our investors, they acknowledge it as something good. They already know what our North Star is, that we're building sustainable practices into the e-commerce industry. And that alone is exciting enough. The B Corp stuff, also really good, but it hasn't been like a difference maker. Just because you have B Corp pending status and you're going down that road, it hasn't been I think to investors, it's industry specific. If you're designing, if you have a great new women's footwear company, and that demographically young women support environmental causes, you're like, okay, well, that reinforces their approach to the market and will resonate probably a little bit more likely with the audience than maybe another company that I'm taking a look at that isn't taking those steps. So it depends, but I don't think there's an investor out there, might be, but I don't think there's any investors that think of it as a negative thing.
Just to
it
clarify,
doesn't slow you down.
What B Corp is, it's a for-profit company that has a social impact.
Social, more than social, like
More
just
than
as like there's multiple prongs or prongs to what they look at. But yeah, overall, you can summarize it as, is your company making a healthy social impact on the planet while it's running its business and doing its activities? Mm-hmm. Are you providing a great environment for your team, your employees? So
it's not like just climate friendly. There's a lot more other metrics.
Way beyond.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I was surprised by that too, Lucy, when I did the application.
Yeah.
I thought it was very climate focused. It is not just climate focused.
Wow. Well, I hope you get approved.
Thank you.
When it comes to still looking at investors' perspective on climate-friendly companies, what are your opinions on ESG reporting and companies that get included in the ESG badge?
Yeah.
Is it a good rating or is it not good?
I think ESG principles are great bars to aspire to, great standards to aspire to. So I think it's only a good thing. And I don't think companies should beat themselves up if they discover that they're falling short. Like I said earlier in the conversation, we live in a world that's not conducive just yet. But the cool thing is that right here, right now, we're a part of that change, and we have that opportunity that like 20 years ago, it will be a baseline standard for operating a business. And I think that using that as perhaps a map as to how you want to build and grow your company is a fantastic thing.
A lot of people complained because Exxon Mobil, an oil company, was included in the ESG ratings, whereas Tesla wasn't.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of companies trick, their reporting to be included.
Well, I'm kind of on the fence about that because I feel like there are some people out there, and we kind of live in a world where the people who dictate the conversation are people who shout the loudest about it. Most people are just living their lives, posting on Facebook and Instagram and maybe a tweet every month or so.
Yeah.
But the people who shout the loudest, and I think that there's just a natural negativity toward anything that's oil business or mineral business or anything like that.
Yeah.
I haven't looked specifically into that situation. I may have heard something about it, but I can't not applaud Exxon or any of the petroleum companies for trying. I mean, their business is what their business is. If they also want to raise the bar and look at I think it's 21 areas of ESG or 20 areas, somewhere around 20 areas of ESG, then I applaud them for that. Just because they're an oil company doesn't mean I'm going to hate on them for taking that initiative. And Tesla's seems like it's in a category of its own in a sense. Employees who work there, and we probably both know some employees that work there in Austin, Texas, love working there. So they're probably like, we've already thought of this 5 years ago.
True.
Yeah.
So one stat from your website is that 44% of customers purchase products online based on how well they match their set of values.
Yeah.
How do you think that the influencer culture has contributed to this awareness of where the products come from, where the materials come from?
Yeah, great question. And that's on our website, and it is also found on the white paper that we released in January. Mm-hmm. We do a white paper every quarter. The first one was on consumer sentiments around sustainability. And that statistic was from a white paper research that we did. We didn't do it. We hired a third party to do it, totally neutral from anything manifest related, just so that it was completely unbiased. And 44% of consumers feel that way, which was really great to see.
Yeah, that's a very good percentage.
A very good percentage. And it tells you that businesses are slow to adjust. Consumers are begging for it. 44% of consumers out of 10,000 that we polled, or not we polled, but the third-party research company polled, that's wild. Businesses need to wake up and start taking action, even if it means maybe a little bit less short-term profitability. Make the investment. It's totally worth it because consumers, like we talked about, it's brand loyalty.
So why are they not taking action? Is it the short-term?
There's upfront investment in, for perhaps a bigger company than us. You have dozens, if not hundreds of suppliers that you already have embedded relationships and pricing with. There aren't many, perhaps, other companies that are competitors of the bigger company that have made the shift towards sustainability.
Yeah.
So if there's no competition for it, why do we need to make that investment right now? Again, it's a very delicate balance between running a business that's profitable, continued profits coming, continue keeping employees happy, hiring them, giving them raises, and balancing that with, okay, but at some point what we're doing is highly inefficient in regards to what's available to do in the world. When are we going to take that better step in the direction towards sustainability or social issues or whatever it is, and fundamentally change how a lot of our business operates? It's a tough question for business owners. But I think, when you look at like our white paper and some of the statistics that we have in there, I think everything's moved in that direction already. It's not just like a nice to have. Customers are demanding it. So smart businesses, I think sooner than later will start making dramatic shifts towards sustainability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And how do you think that influencer culture played a role in this?
Big time.
You have all these, like Kardashians and Kylie Jenner that produce lipsticks that are vegan and cruelty-free, and do you think that they're doing this because they actually care? Like, is it their main selling point, the fact that they're vegan and that they're cruelty-free, or do you think that comes at the expense of the quality of the product?
Yeah, interesting question.
Yeah.
So I would say that it's a little bit probably circumstantial.
Yeah.
I think that on one thing, it's really good. How we were talking about earlier, how a lot of the conversation in the country and the world is dictated by those people who are just shouting the loudest.
Yeah.
The influencers who are talking around sustainability, around social, that's a positive thing. That's the positive part of people shouting really loud. Yeah. Because some people are like, just always set in their ways. Things are this way. Maybe they're not perfect, but they are what they are. No, we got to continue to aspire to be better as a society, be better as an industry, be better as an individual. But with, like in your example, like celebrities, it's circumstantial because maybe I don't know anything about them. Like literally very little, but you're already a target as a celebrity. And if it's already saturated into the mind space of your consumers that a lot of cosmetics are made in, animal cruelty, cruel environments or tested on them, you're asking for it if you don't take things like vegan friendly and cruelty free, etc., and produce your product that way. You're already successful, but you're already a big target. So you kind of are forced to do that unless you really are just asking for it. So, but I'd like to say that they're probably people want to do the right thing overall. Like there's such a mixed bag of behaviors and people and moments, and we're all good and we're all bad in life. But at the end of the day, we all want to do good. We all want to leave a legacy that we can be proud of and have people look back at our lives and look back at our own lives and say that we made right decisions. We did things that helped influence change. So I'm willing to believe that people want to do the right thing. But when you're already a big celebrity, it's like you have to do the right thing. Otherwise, you're asking to not, be a big celebrity with a good reputation.
Well, I think it's very hard to see who is doing the right thing and who is pretending to do the right thing. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
It requires a lot of research to see which companies are actually taking the right steps to reduce emissions versus which companies are just pretending to do so.
Yeah. And part of that is we're in the early stages. And that's why if you're trying to create change, if you're doing something differently, got to keep pushing because it hasn't fully gotten into the baseline of society yet. We're doing the work now, so that the standard 5 years from now, 10 years from now is just looks completely different. Like you used to be able to smoke cigarettes on an airplane probably like 40, 50 years ago. Now if you lit up a cigarette in an airplane, they would look at you like you were nuts. I want at least in regards to my specific corner of the world in the industry of fulfillment, that when a package arrives at your doorstep 5 years from now and it's not completely biodegradable, the carbon, the offset hasn't occurred, that it's got plastic on it, that you look at it the same way that you would look at somebody trying to light a cigarette on an airplane today. That would make me really happy.
Mm-hmm. That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
So apart from producing sustainable packaging, what else do you do? I read on your website that you help companies choose warehouses that are sustainable.
Well, we have a warehouse here in Austin, Texas. This is where I came from. I was running late down our big highway here in Austin. We have a warehouse 18 minutes outside of Austin in a little town called Buda, Texas. Fantastic town, great people. And we love operating there. But we have a facility where merchants from all over the world send us their inventory. We warehouse their inventory in our facility. And as their orders come in to go out to their clients all over the world, we pick, pack, and ship those orders out in a way that's sustainable. So not only do merchants come to us and say, hey, this is... A lot of our merchants are brands. Brands want custom experiences, custom boxes. A lot of them will come to us and say, hey, I've been using these poly mailers. This is what's available. They've got my logo on it. They've got my art design on it. Is there a sustainable option that I can substitute this for? We're fully able and capable and willing and happy to help them out with that because we have all these relationships with the sustainable box manufacturers and sustainable suppliers. So we consult with brands. We go through a process with them in the onboarding phase when they decide to work with us for our fulfillment service and help them outline or help identify their goals as an organization. And because we are the company that are warehousing, picking and packing and shipping out their orders, we're able to help them benchmark where they want to be in terms of sustainability and how they're tracking their progress toward getting there and achieving that. And once they do, what's next? What other benchmark can we go for as an organization? And every step along the way, we're providing them with data and information that allows them to track their progress. And it's fun. You know, you're sharing that with your audience and the people who buy your products. For them, it's a lot of fun to be able to share that as a merchant, as a business owner.
Do you operate nationally?
We have one fulfillment center here in Austin, Texas, in Buda, Texas.
And all your customers store here? That's the requirement?
That's the requirement.
Because if I'm a company in Washington or New York, right, it would be more strategic for me to have a warehouse there.
Yes and no.
Then the climate impact of flying all my goods to your place, to Austin, can be even more climate intensive than storing it in an unsustainable warehouse.
Right. Yeah. You're really perceptive, Lucy, but I will also add that being in the middle of the country allows our brands to ship to both coasts equidistance, relatively equidistance within 2 or 3 days. And once you break, so when you're shipping it, say the inventory comes from Asia, from Vietnam, it goes through the port of Long Beach. Typically, our clients will send it through the port of Houston, but it's bunched up in pallets. It's in a container. It's all together. Where a lot of the carbon impact and carbon impact does happen in that part of it. But where once you break it down, 10,000 pieces and you ship each out individually, that's where we come into play. And that's what we're doing on behalf of merchants. So it's good to be close to the port, but then say you're in Washington or California, but then you have to ship to Florida and South Carolina and New York, and it's traversing trucks, planes, rail to get there. So for us, part of the reason we decided to do business in Austin was because it's in the middle of the country. And we're able to distribute our shipments to both coasts at a relatively reasonable distance.
How do you measure climate impact? Like, I can imagine there are so many parts in the supply chain, right? You have the extraction of materials, the lithium in Congo. Then you have the actual production of the product. Then you have the logistics delivered to customer. How do you measure that?
I talked to a guy about a year ago, a really smart dude in Seattle, Washington, and he was creating a master it was represented in a spreadsheet, but he was a master database of how to calculate that. And he had gone so deep and so far, and he still didn't know fully just yet. He really didn't. He had been working on it for like, I don't know, probably a year. He had been compiling everything from the shipment delivered to Lucy and George in Austin, Texas, all the way back to exactly what you're saying, the materials that were sourced to make the product. It's such a long and complex chain. I should check in with him if he ever got to the end of being able to at least identify a handful of industries and products and say, hey, here's what the total climate impact is. It's a very good question, and it's something that really smart, dedicated people are pursuing, but I'm not sure anyone's been able to, across the board, provide a database and say, hey, what's the climate impact of making a microphone and delivering a microphone or a table or a chair? It's just so many variables.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard somewhere that jeans, like H&M or Zara jeans, go through 14 countries before they get to the customer, right?
Yeah.
Like the material gets sourced in, I don't know, Bangladesh, then they get sent to Netherlands for coloring, then back to China for whatever assembly, packaging, and it's like all over the world before they get to the customer. And it's crazy. Yeah. Crazy.
It's really crazy. Logistics, I think it's number 4 or 5. Let's call it 5, is the 5th biggest polluting industry on our planet because of exactly what you just described. You have a product as simple as jeans that's going from one continent to another just to create the finished product.
Yeah.
Wild.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And I think ships itself are 6% of all emissions globally.
Yeah.
Right? Like shipping, people don't think about actual ships on the sea. These huge containers, right? That's something we can't imagine.
Yeah, there's a huge push in that industry now, and you'll probably be happy to know, led by the Europeans, that like, hey, if you're going to do trade in Europe, you're going to deliver to create standards that are much higher than what they've been, in our generation. So I subscribe to this newsletter called Trade Winds, which is like ocean freight industry. Literally every news alert is about, company buying new environmentally friendly scrubbers for their fleet, or companies like Maersk taking dramatic action and setting, benchmarks for themselves in a certain date. Like that, the cool thing is that they're very self-aware of their impact, and they are quickly making crazy investments in trying to upgrade their impact. And part of it is being led by the governmental pressure in Europe, because they're basically saying Europe's very stubborn about environmental stuff. And they're basically saying, if you're going to do business in our ports, here's the expectation that we have. So whether they're doing it willingly or not, they have to do it if they want to, transact with the EU.
Yeah. The question is to what extent they want to control the people and the companies versus actually have a good impact on the environment.
Yeah.
A lot of people say that climate change, environment is used as an excuse to control the population. What do you say to those people? I think Jordan Peterson is like the loudest proponent of this theory.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Well, he thinks climate change isn't real, right? That the United Nations, the World Economic Forum, European Union government are using this as a guise to control the populations, control the people, control the flow of goods and services, increase the price of goods and services, which then gets to the consumer. Control sources of energy. In California, there was a bill recently proposed in the legislature that would control where energy comes from, and it would centralize it to the Department of Water Resources. So what do you say to this claim that climate change is used as a means to control the source of food, the source of energy to people?
Yeah.
The Dutch farmers' crisis is a good example as well.
Which farmers' crisis?
The Dutch in the Netherlands, they're trying to control how much nitrogen, I believe, farmers emit. And that leads to, I think they want to expropriate their land, buy it out from them. and use it to house immigrants. I've heard that that's the case. So what do you say to these people who do not believe that that governments actually care about positive climate impact?
Yeah, I don't go too deep into a lot of the. I don't have time just as an entrepreneur to go too deep into a lot of this stuff. I think Jordan Peterson's comment is probably overly sensational, which is maybe a requirement of who he is and what he does and the audience that he speaks to. I can't see, whether global warming is true or not. Yeah. We have an impact on this planet through our activities, and there's only one planet that I know of that we can live on at this point. So if we're going to continue to live on this planet, make children who live on this planet, and have children who live on this planet, we need to start looking at where the more ruinous and destructive parts of our activities are and finding alternatives to correct it. Yeah. So I don't know too much about climate change. I know about climate change, but like whether the Earth's temperature, like that debate, I've heard it back and forth all day. But we have an impact on this planet that we live in, and it's our only planet. There's one planet. So to say that that is not the right thing to do, I would disagree with him all day. I can see an opinion, if this is an opinion, and again, I don't know anything about his specific opinion, that you can curtail behavior of your population by creating these kind of guardrails, by saying, hey, this is what has to be done, this is what you have to do, to help move things in the direction that you would like them to see and to control them. It's almost like the teacher saying, hey, class, these are the things that you have to do if you're going to be in our school, or if you're going to be in my class and you're going to get a good report card. And yeah, it's almost like treating them a little bit like children. I'm very independent in that sense. I think people ultimately left to their own are going to make right decisions and are going to take the less selfish route on most things if it doesn't necessarily impact their direct goal. Yeah. What I would say to them is I would need to know more. I would love to hear their arguments, to be honest with you, and be like, okay, like the Dutch farmer situation, let's talk about that. And I'd love to hear what they have to say, and I'll probably say, but to say that climate impact is just a tool, or like this attention that governments and society is putting on climate impact is a tool to control people, no. Yeah. No, because there's one planet. Let's take care of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Part of when, the day that I decided to start Manifest, I was in San Diego, and I woke up in San Diego and I was in their little part of the city that was like their little Italy. And it was a beautiful sunny morning. Yeah. And I was walking to breakfast with a friend, and my niece called me, and it was really beautiful. I was like really moved by how beautiful, and I hadn't been in Southern California in a while, so I was a little bit like overly like impacted to be there, because I used to live there, and I like it in that area. But it was a beautiful Sunday morning. I got a call from my niece Juliana, and she was like 3 or 4 years old at the time. Yeah. A video call, and I was like, I want her to have this feeling that I'm having right now, looking at these beautiful streets lit up with gorgeous sun. 20 minutes outside of where I'm standing, there's amazing nature in Orange County, and it's like, this is worth fighting for. This is worth maintaining and leaving it so that other people can experience this feeling that I have right now.
Do you want to have children?
Yeah.
Do you think about the climate impact, the climate that your children will grow up in?
1,000%. 1,000%. Again, I'm not an academic when it comes to a lot of these studies that I see about climate change equals food shortages, equals like different migration patterns. I believe a lot of it, and I believe a lot of the research that goes into it. Probably things don't exactly happen the way that they always model it, but they can identify trends, geopolitical trends, environmental trends, decades ahead of time. And when I hear a lot of those, it makes me kind of cringe a little bit. It is alarming, and it does make me think about not just my future, but the other people that I care about. My nieces, my nephew, their families.
So as a consumer, what do you suggest that I do? Should I do less consumption, less Amazon delivery? Should I not order groceries online? How should I live my life to have less impact on the climate, negative impact?
Yeah, we're Americans, and it's fully our American right to take advantage of the prosperity that our country has borne. If you want to order online, if you want to buy groceries a certain way, you're fully in your right, and you absolutely should do it. But you should look at the brands who you're working with, who you're purchasing from, and see what are their principles. How are they providing me with this product? And let them know. Let them know how you feel. Like, brands need to know, whether the big retailers, small retailers, or the business on Main Street, let them know what you're about and what you think about their product. But I'm not going to say Americans need to curtail their behavior in any way, because that's fully our right. But the businesses that we get these opportunities and products and services from, let them know what we want to see. Profit is a huge motivator.
It is. How did you go about fundraising? You fundraised at the South by Southwest?
No, we weren't fundraising at South by Southwest, although that is a big benefit to it. It puts you in front of an audience, in a room with VC investors and all types of people in the ecosystem. We were self-funded originally. We had staked the company out of personal investment. And about midpoint last year, around this time last year, we had another couple of investors come on here locally in Texas who were really excited about what we were building and wanted to be a part of it. Actually, one of them is a wildly successful money manager. And one of the things that he said was, life is great, but I'm bored. And what you're building and what you're doing is exciting to me. I would love to invest in what you're building and support you.
Awesome.
And having investors like that who also, I've done the fundraising dance a lot of time, before. It is a lot of tire kicking, a lot of conversations. I like to take a more targeted approach and find out which VCs not only can open, or which investors not only can open the doors to help us achieve our goal, but what are their principles, what are their values. So we've been really lucky. I would say that most businesses can't necessarily find one or two investors that are willing to support them in the early seed stage all the way until A. But at Manifest, we're in a good position there, and we love the Austin community. One of the reasons I started the business with my co-founders in Austin was because we thought that Austin was not only in the middle of the country, but Texas is a great environment for small businesses, but it's also a city who we can marry our sustainable and environmental values to, that would get what we're doing and appreciate it.
100%. So when you were trying to fundraise, were you targeting specifically climate VCs or investors that were focused on climate companies?
A little bit, and not to be on.
Is it main part of your pitch, or do you more focus on data and revenue and stuff
that's
like
a great
that?
question. That's a great question that I bet you a lot of small business owners and entrepreneurs are wondering. Is it enough to just be sustainable? And the answer is no. No. You need to have, you need to be more than sustainable to disrupt a market or carve out a significant niche for yourself. VC investors won't invest in your company unless you have the potential to be 10 or probably 100 times bigger than you are at the day that you're approaching them. And to do that, you have to have magnitudes of change in your product set compared to what's out there currently in the marketplace. At Manifest, we're not just a sustainable fulfillment company. What we like to think of ourselves, sustainability as our North Star, but we're a 21st century fulfillment company that incorporates sustainability. But one of the things that we do at Manifest that's different than the rest of the industry is that each and every one of our merchants has a dedicated account team, everything from executive sponsorship to an account manager, which then allows them to help solve and bring problems to their attention, help solve problems that they have and bring attention to issues in real time, and have somebody that you're consistently working with that understands your business, understands your product, and understands your flow and your priorities.
Yeah.
Sadly enough, that doesn't exist in the fulfillment industry today. More often than not, merchants who signed up to work with their 3PL 4 or 5 years ago thought they were getting a partner to this very critical part, this really critical component to their business. But today, it feels more like they're buying a latte from Starbucks because they're dealing with endless support tickets, Zendesk tickets, oftentimes to somebody who's nowhere near the warehouse. They're on another continent in another time zone. If you're running a business and the livelihood of you, your family, your employees depends on it, you need a partner. You don't need somebody who's just providing a service. And we pride ourselves at Manifest at being a true partner. We'll happily be in the background. You're the rock star with a fantastic product, and we're going to support you and make sure that you can rely on us. And then the third component to our value proposition is omni-channel. Brands who started their businesses 4 or 5 years ago, maybe were just selling on Shopify or BigCommerce. Today, they're also shipping to Bloomingdale's and Amazon and Fair Market and Dick's Sporting Goods. To be able to operationally adjust to satisfy both business-to-business orders and direct-to-consumer orders is not something that the brand name fulfillment industry has been able to digest just yet. They're taking steps and putting a lot of attention and investment toward it, but they don't do it really well. And the same goes from the technological aspect, where you build out all the EDI integrations to these major retailers. They're still chipping away at it and trying to find a workable solution. At Manifest, we embedded that into our foundation from day one to be sustainable, dedicated to each and every merchant, a true partner to our merchants, and to be omni-channel as a business. Offer our merchants who work with us the ability to sell to whoever you want around the world. And it makes a lot of sense too, because traditional retailers want to get people back in their stores. E-commerce businesses, oftentimes smaller businesses, have new, innovative, sexy products. So it's a great marriage now, especially in a world where things like Google AdWords and Facebook marketing are producing a lower ROI than they traditionally have. To work with a retailer and now be able to, instead of selling 600 packages a week to directly to consumers, you're sending 6 pallets to a major retailer and boom, sending tens of thousands of dollars worth of product to a retailer. Having a fulfillment company that can do both just as easily is a part of our value proposition that customers love.
So you're focusing on small and mid-sized merchants. How do you price your product?
Yeah, actually, it's more mid-sized merchants.
Mid-sized merchants. How do you make money?
Yeah, so we make money in a couple of ways. One, warehousing. For the real estate, we have to charge a price for housing your inventory. So we work with merchants to try to optimize the amount of inventory they're storing with us. Typically, we target for about 6 to 8 weeks worth of inventory stored at our location, because you could potentially do it cheaper at another location, a dry storage facility. Secondly, the services that we provide, every step in the process has a human performing action, and that action is something that we charge for. So it's called a pick and a pack fee. To pick the order, to pack the order, there's a fee associated with that. And then to ship the product out. Once it's packed, to put it on a USPS, a FedEx, a DHL truck, that's another point where we would charge our merchants. And somewhere at different points in between there's small margins that make up enough of a margin to run and scale a business over the long term.
Are you cash flow positive?
No. We've only been in business a year and a half, so we're getting there. But
still growing fast.
Right, but yeah, and I say that totally okay with it. Like, we hadn't planned on being cash flow positive today. That's not in our original business plan. And I think that's where a lot of people going down the entrepreneurship journey for the first time struggle with, because it's like our brains are wired to be like, you mean you're not making money and somehow you're okay? Yeah. It's like, yeah, but
I think it's the opposite, actually. Startup founders never expect to make money. They just want to raise money from VCs infinitely.
Yeah, I think that, yes. I think there was a generation, the previous generation to us, where they had that, And then they ruined it, you know, with like WeWork and Uber, and they just
oh yeah, Uber went public and it wasn't cash flow positive.
Wasn't cash flow positive, and they raised private money at valuations higher than when they went public at. So I think VCs are incredibly smart people too. They don't play that game anymore. I think you have to show a roadmap to profitability and be able to back up exactly how you want to get there today to raise money in this environment. I don't think the endless, but you know, we're disrupting the industry, and the potential in 20 years is a $1 kajillion.
Yeah.
It doesn't work I don't think it works anymore. I haven't tried, but I don't think it'll work.
That's good advice. So talking about advice, what would you say to aspiring founders? A lot of my listeners are founders in the early stages, or even people that want to start businesses, don't know where to start.
Yeah.
So what would you tell them?
One, it's okay. Everything's going to be okay. You know, really, when I think back to, you know, the biggest company that I was a part of building, and you know, when I left Shipbob 7 years into it, we were a very big company with, you know, 2,000 employees at that time, revenue in the 9 figures.
Wow.
I missed the early days when things seemed like they were totally out of control, and we were building. And you know, we were stressed. We were, you know, there were just all kinds of strange occurrences happening on a daily basis. I would sit at my desk or in my office or during COVID at home and think about, I miss those days. You felt alive. You feel very alive when you're building a business in the early stages. Embrace that. Take that with you, and know that it'll be okay as long as you keep pushing. I think any business will essentially work, but a lot of people give up at a certain point. But I would also say my important advice is work with people. If you develop a team, or if you develop board advice, you know, there are some solopreneurs out there. A lot of other entrepreneurs have a team and co-founders.
Do you have a co-founder?
I have 2 co-founders, yeah, Max Stevens and Bob Sixsmith, and they worked with me. We were colleagues at Shipbob, and so we've worked together for almost 10 years together. But you get to where you want to go a lot faster when you compound and combine your knowledge, your resourcefulness, your opinions together, and you rely on their talents. Everyone's good at something, but no one is good at everything.
Yeah.
So the more you work with a fantastic team, or build a fantastic team, and give them the opportunity to contribute what they best can contribute, the faster you'll make progress. You know, as an entrepreneur, in the early days, even when I first started to manifest, I felt like I had to know everything. Know everything for everyone, because everyone's looking up to me to have all the answers. It's not true. Inviting people around you to be a part of what you're building and to have their input and to put their best foot forward is everything. And it compounds progress so much faster than if you were to just try to figure things out for yourself, all by yourself. And you also sleep a lot better.
Yeah. It's a huge green flag to have co-founders that you worked with before. You know your strengths, you know your weaknesses, right?
Yeah.
It's a huge green flag.
100%.
So it's going to be okay. And hire a great team of people that you trust, and that...
Surround yourself with great people and utilize what they have to offer.
Yeah, that's great advice. Cool. Well, thank you so much, George.
My pleasure.
It was an insightful discussion. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you.